Look out, it's two middle-aged geeks on film.
It is indeed two middle-aged geeks on film. I am PLD on the PLD Projects Network. This year, PJ Campbell.
Hello.
And yeah, we're coming to you a day later than we thought we were going to. Then we
Oh,
actually mentioned it, but we should get right off the top and say
no,
what happened.
real quick, though.
Okay.
I want it noted. I'm very happy that we never changed the theme music for the show.
I just think about that every time. Every
Um,
time.
because I know you've brought it up before, but then when we end up in situations like this where we have to talk about Superman 3, the horror theme music of it all seems to really indicate where we're headed and what you
Resonates.
and I have gone through. So,
Resonates.
you know, I'm gonna go ahead and call that one a win. All things
Yeah.
equal. So
Makes a lot of
there's
sense.
that. Yeah, so we initially, to your point, were a day later than we were supposed to be because we were going to do our Doctor Who live stream last night. And we'd been talking about for a little bit that we were going to do, like, go back and do what we were basically doing was like, you know,
An after show.
an after show, like a review show after every episode. And one, truth of the matter is we're already doing a lot of stuff. And we're like knee deep in doing stuff for the MCU, and it's good for us to focus on doing that because it's part of the Patreon. It's built into it now. So we decided that the Doctor Who stuff is going to kind of go on hiatus for a little bit. It allows us to focus on the Marvel stuff. It allows us to continue doing extra stuff for the patrons, which I think is arguably more important right now anyway, because I'm also enjoying it a lot.
I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying it a lot. Now I'm rewatching it with a new lens, but again, I just have this conversation with you about it.
Right.
Really kind of diving deep into things I've forgotten, things I did never knew, and how it really began and where we are now. Like it's been a great time all the way around. I
Yeah.
hope you guys are checking out. I hope you guys who are checking out are enjoying it. We seem to be getting good feedback from the few people who are watching it that we've heard. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. And like that kind of brings the second point around
Oh yeah, I will say yeah.
in all
We
this.
were gonna have to pause it. We were gonna have to pause it because
Yeah.
we only we're to do one podcast a week right now at this point. Even though you only see us here every other week, the off weeks we're recording the MCU for the Patreons at this point. We got ahead of them, so we're getting like content out as much as we can. This was going to be an extra, so it would have been a third one at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Every other week, or every week we're doing Doctor Who, and that just made it like we can't do it, and we really can't do it if we're struggling with our passions.
It is, and I was gonna say that brings the other point is you kind of brought up like we've been excited, we've been enjoying the stuff with the MCU, and the truth of the matter is, and this is this is unfortunately not the fault of the show or the showrunner or the people involved in the show at the moment when it comes to Doctor Who,
Right.
but where the show is currently at right now with the will they won't they of the series continuing after this season, the potential of Shooty being ushered out basically because no one will commit to another season and he wants to do other things with his career. It's
Looks like
created a
him.
real right. It's kind of created this like really toxic-y ecosystem around the show that it's really zapped the fun out of the show, and it's a huge bummer for me because anyone who knows me knows I won't shut up. I will never shut up about Doctor Who. Like it's one of my biggest, favoriteest, most like passionate things that I can care about.
Same with me.
Right, and so we were texting on Saturday after the premiere of the first episode, and I told Paul straight up, I was like, my enthusiasm is all but gone.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching it, but I was not enjoying it the way that I did because in the back of my head, all I could hear was the chirping of, does this matter? Like, it seems like this may not even move forward after this. Like, and it's weird to be living through this time where this is possible because we were talking about it actually off air just now. We were promised as fans in some capacity a much different version of what this was going to look like under the Disney Plus deal. When Disney came on board, and this idea of like no off years with the show, no like little shows in between, bigger seasons and things like that, expanding out the universe. Basically, what Big Finish does in audio was kind of the pitch of what the show would look like moving forward.
Great potential for a lot of different
Right.
avenues to travel. But it just didn't end up working out that way yet because
No.
of a couple different things. And some of it has to do with, I mean, obviously 2 years ago or 3 years ago when Disney made this deal initially with BBC and with Bad Wolf Productions or whoever, um, streaming was a lot different. Disney Plus was expanding out. They were launching all these things. They were trying to get any. That's why all the Marvel shows were there, Star Wars shows. Like they were putting as much content as they possibly could. And all of a sudden, like here we are 2 years later, and they're like, "Well, we have to reevaluate this. This is not working out properly for anybody involved, and we're slowing things down." That's why
A
MCU
lot.
slowed down. Star Wars has slowed down a lot, and that all of a sudden changed their concept of like, well, what does this mean for Doctor Who? Fortunately, we only got the one season like before this started happening. And they do have the filmed spin-off series and they have season 2, which they're going now. But at that point, that was the original deal. So the original deal supposedly was 26 episodes, I believe, which
Mhm.
included the 2 seasons and the spin-off or something like that. It's some kind of whatever it is, that's the total number. Including the Christmas special, et cetera, et cetera.
And the
So
specials.
right. So after and the special, right, the 14th Doctor, the 60th anniversary specials. So with all that in play, that series is done, and with the streaming as it is now, they're reevaluating everything, and now it's like, well, we're going to see how this does, and then we'll see what we're going to do going forward at this point. Which, of course, is fine, and understandably in a business sense, but like, if you have to do that, that's gonna be what halt production. Like Reacher on Amazon Prime has 3 seasons, like mapped, like they're greenlit,
Season 4 is already greenlit.
right, they've already greenlit, they're ready, they're starting ready to go. If you wait, that means you can't do much. You can do some writing and you can prepare, but how much do you, really do the pre-production on if it's like well, we might do it next season.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't. And it's been really frustrating. And look, again, I know it's all a business and stuff, but the truth of the matter is also that, and I'll say it here, I think Disney has like highly dropped the ball with the property.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't feel like that they've treated it with respect for being the world's like longest running sci-fi series. I don't feel like they have given it the credit that it's due. I don't feel like they do enough to promote it. I don't feel like they've really embraced it.
Right.
And I think that they got it in the hopes that it would be like an overnight success and that it wouldn't have to do a lot with it. That's
Right.
kind of the vibe that I get.
They had the
But
name, they could just build it into it, and absolutely.
yeah, but that's not what Doctor Who is.
Well, it's also the problem is too, and I mentioned it before we went on air too, is that we this is a long-serving property that's over a lot of different streaming services. Like,
Mhm,
the BBC has the Hooniverse thing. That's the concept of what we were supposed to have all on Disney Plus, or we
mhm,
could have all the old shows, even some of the classic era was pitched at one point. I mean,
mhm.
but we should at least have the new Who from 2005 on, right? That should at least be part of some kind of package deal to it. Right now, you look at Disney Plus, they had for a while, they just had the 3 specials. Then they
Yeah,
had the 1 season. That's, like, really all they have, so you can't really build on that as well as you could if you had the entire property. All the spinoffs, the Sarah Jane Adventures,
Torchwood.
Torchwood. Exactly, they could do so much with that, but they don't have the rights to it, I don't believe, and so that's what makes it a
No, they
troublesome.
don't because it's all on HBO still.
Right. And the main problem also, the main issue here is this is not like just another TV show. And I'm not even trying to like, whatever. But like when it comes to TV shows get canceled. It sucks, but it happens. But this is a show that's been around for pretty much our entire lives. Yes, there
Mhm.
was a long hiatus between 1989 and 2005 with just the Eighth Doctor movie in 1996.
Yeah, but we had a lot of books and a lot of
There's
other
books and all that
things.
stuff, everything else. But when it came back in 2005, that's 20 years ago. So
Jesus Christ, man.
it's exactly. So it's been a constant for 20 years, and all of a sudden we're looking at a hiatus again, which is like hasn't happened since 1989. And that was and then you think about that. Can you imagine how long that was when it really legitimately that was another 15 years minus a TV movie, but 15 years before we saw Doctor Who on the screen again. I'm going to be 65 when Doctor Who comes back.
Yeah.
If that's the case. And it's like, kind of like, I mean, a little younger, but not much. And it's like, that's what kills you. It's such part of our lives that now we're not looking forward to it, but like we're seeing our future where this future does not have Doctor Who in it, which we haven't had. We've had breaks, but like not like this.
Not like this. And it's all really, really dour right now. And it's funny because I just told Paul that the funniest thing to me is that like Big Finish keeps trucking along, and every time I turn around, I'm so excited about Doctor Who in audio because right now we have Jodie Whittaker coming back as the Doctor in the next few months. They've been doing the Fugitive box sets. They've been doing the Sasha Darwin Master set that just started. They've got Paternoster Gang stuff. Like, obviously, they're still doing all the stuff with the Eighth Doctor and like all the classic Doctors. 10 has been doing things with Tennant. There's a lot of rumors that he may be coming back again for some more stuff soon too. Like, they're doing so much cool stuff at Big Finish. So it's great because I'll have that. But I also know that like audio is such a specific format for people. And like, I know for you have a problem listening to audio adventures because I've been trying to get you to get into them. And I know it's kind of difficult.
I want to. That's like, I want to. It just doesn't hit the same way for me. I'm a music guy. I do podcasts, but I guess maybe I'm just too ADD. I just get distracted and I can't quite focus without the visual there to really keep me engaged. I mean, I've liked what I've heard, but I haven't like gone all in on anything. If you told me all this stuff that was happening on TV, on like Disney Plus, was you were having all, I would be so psyched and I would be ready to go. But now it's just kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, obviously, the different format, obviously, they can do that because it's a lot less budget.
Well, and they can do bigger stories because of it, which is huge.
All they need is to pay the actors and to pay the production crew as far as like, who's recording it and things like that. Right. Like sound, like it's a lot cheaper. So that should make sense.
And we get a lot of cool stuff because of it. A lot of cool crossovers that we've never had in live action, obviously, whether I'm talking like multi-doctor things, obviously, and or even like they have crossed over Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Who and the audio dramas. They've done like other little things like that, or having the Sixth Doctor actually appear in a Torchwood story in the Captain Jack stuff. Like they've done that, and that's really cool, And
I will say that like both of us highly enjoyed the first episode from the second season.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about
it was great.
But PJ actually texted me, said this is one of the best RTD written openers. I agreed with that.
Although I'll say this, justice for the cat. What the fuck?
That poor cat.
What out of Russell T Davies is not necessarily like a mean-spirited guy usually. that came out of nowhere.
That was tough. That
was random. Yeah. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, these robots are like rampaging in this house. And we get a cutaway to there's a cat just standing there and the robot disintegrates the cat.
Right. It's like, what the hell?
It was so random.
Right. But the episode itself.
I still don't understand that.
I don't either. The episode itself was great, though. We had a lot of like mysteries thrown out there. There's a lot of touches to base. Shooty gave on a great performance. The new companion, Belinda, is wonderful. I forget her name right now. I'm sorry. I forget her name. The actress's name.
I will look because I also do not remember it off the top.
No, she's in Andor as well, and she was in last season of Doctor Who as a different as her descendant of the character Belinda, Miss Belinda John. But it's Charland.
I'm looking.
Veron, it's like
Verada Setu.
Verada Setu. That's it. Yeah, and she was wonderful. They were all wonderful. We had appearances by Mrs. Flood again. Like there was a lot of stuff.
Mrs. Brian May.
Mrs. Brian May, right? Mrs. Dr. Brian May. Loving it. Absolutely loved it. Like I loved it. Like at point, like it was just up there with anything that was good last season. Anything I could put up against a lot of other Doctor Who's. Great time had. But at the same time, what PJ said before, if we had done this after show like we usually do, it would have been too negative. I think we would have been like spending most of our time on. It was great, but what's happening? It was wonderful, but and I don't know if we could do that for 8 episodes. Just felt like it was going to be like a long, drawn-out funeral. That's not kind of podcasting I want to do. Now, I will say this. If we get to the end of the season and there's some kind of announcement of a renewal or something we're moving forward to. Maybe we'll do a catch up, even just like
I
a
was
one
gonna
episode catch
say,
up. One
I
episode
kind of have
catch
a
up.
feeling we will probably do like a moratorium type episode regardless,
Yeah.
whether it's because the show has now been canceled and or we finally have news and like things start to be set right.
Right. I'll have a long big blue
Uh,
box where we talk about the entire season potentially. That's what we'll do.
yeah, but
Um,
it's just we have to get. It's just a bad time of being a fan right now.
yeah. Absolutely. We can do a rest in peace show. Absolutely. We could do that because but right now it's like so uneasy. We just don't know how to do our show. With
Yeah,
it. It just kind of felt like really
it's just the truth of the matter, and
yeah.
I don't want to have to fake nice about a lot of this either. Like,
Right.
I would rather just be straight up. Like, I think it's garbage how a lot of this has happened,
Yeah.
and it sucks. And if Shooty feels like he has to leave because of it, on top of it, that
Sucks.
really sucks.
Yeah. He's been wonderful. He's been a wonderful addition as a doctor.
I don't want that at all,
No, I don't either.
honestly,
So
because it's a real problem that I felt like Jody got kneecapped by not great writing, and
mhm.
now Shooty is almost being forced out in a separate capacity where it's more no one wants to make a deal, and he is a rising star who wants to be able to do other things, so his only, answer at that point is just to leave,
Right.
and I hate that. I hate everything about that because it also, in some capacity, makes me feel like really terrible people win.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, I get that as well. I mean, I already threw out the conspiracy. My conspiracy theory was before that Peter Capaldi had been kind of pushed out a little bit potentially. So it's been like a kind of a running theme in Doctor Who. I can't say that for sure. Peter Capaldi has never said anything. It's just kind of putting some maths together on that. Jodie, we all know we saw was handicapped by some pretty shitty writing at this time with Chibnall not doing a great job. To be honest with you, he just wasn't a great showrunner. And it's not.
Just
I don't
not
think the
wasn't
person.
the follow-up to what had happened that we should have had. It didn't work. Like, tonally, the show didn't make sense
Right,
that way,
exactly.
etcetera, etcetera.
And yeah, we got it back with Shooty a little, and Shooty was a great doctor again, and RTD coming back, and your miles may vary. Some people like RTD, some people don't, and that's fine. I don't. Your miles may vary, but it definitely felt like it was going in the right direction again. And now it's just like, now what? And it's sad, and we're struggling with it, and it's just not good. I don't think you want to watch that. I don't think you guys want to watch us struggle for an hour and a
No.
half over things at this point. And
And
we don't
here's the
want to do
thing.
it either.
No, we don't wanna do it, and you guys don't deserve that. No
No.
one deserves that, and we're not the only ones either.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing the fans online, like, if you go on Reddit and stuff, and also, by the way, if you go on Reddit, be real careful because there's a lot of what appear to be pretty seriously real leaks
Yeah.
all
Some of them are
over the
probably
Reddit.
nonsense, but some of them are actually probably true because that's how it happens in Doctor Who fandom. That's just
Yeah.
happened before. Sometimes they look like they're the biggest fan wank kind of fan fiction kind of stories, and sometimes they're absolute truth. The
Yeah, because
60th
the
anniversary.
bi-generation stuff was out there for
Yeah.
a pretty good while
Yeah.
before it was out, and
Mhm.
I remember going, "That can't be real."
Right. And yet it was.
And yet it was. And on paper, it sounded kind of not great, but on screen, it works.
I thought it worked tremendously well. Yeah, absolutely. Because you had the right performers in there doing the job, and they made it work.
Yeah,
Um,
so but you in saying that, like, you go on the Reddit, you see a lot of the same thing is happening there. A
mhm.
lot of people just very disillusioned with the state of the show. A lot of people just feel sad and tired, and it feels like the wilderness era may come back sooner rather than later. But the one thing we do have to remember is that, like, at the end of the day, the show is in such a different place now than it was then in the initial, like, hiatus era. And I
Right.
say that because at this point in time, it still remains one of BBC's like flagship shows in which viewers actually do watch. It hasn't fully trailed off in the way that it had in like the original era of the show when it went away.
Right.
So the BBC will do everything in its power to keep the lights on in some capacity.
Right.
The problem is what is that capacity and how do we get through it? And
Exactly.
that's going to be the question that is going to have to be asked and dealt with. And my hope is that if they find a new home, it is a home in which someone will actually take the time to give it its due
Right.
and take care of it the right way, and like long term, basically, stand behind it. That's my hope, at least,
Right.
because otherwise, what the hell are we doing here?
Right. And I have to say that I personally think we are wringing our hands and clutching our pearls at the worst case scenario of it. Absolutely. I don't think that is going to be over. I do think
I
we're going to
don't
get a
either.
hiatus. I do think we're going to have a hiatus. I do
You
think that's going
can't
to happen.
not at this point,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, what I mean by hiatus is I think even if Disney Plus renews it, it's going to be a
Right.
small
That's what I
hiatus.
mean. Like,
Right.
you can't not either way.
I think we're going to get a bigger hiatus. I think we might get a bigger, like 4 or 5 year, like as far as they are going to take away from Disney, they're going to regroup and they're going to figure it out. I think that might be what happens, but we're going to get it back. It's the possibility that's even worse. It's just weighing down on us. So that's it. We're not going to talk about it anymore because we don't want to like destroy it. We don't want to get it. This is why we didn't do the podcast yesterday. We don't want to get so negative about it, right? This is why we didn't do the show yesterday. But I will say the positive side of things for this is that we will bring back the Big Blue Box as a live stream at least once after the show is over. We'll figure out exactly when and where after we
You guys will
figure out
know.
what
We'll
is.
talk
You
about
guys
it.
will know. And hell, you know what? Maybe we'll love it so much. Maybe we'll just create a monthly two middle-aged geeks on film live stream where we have time to have all the half-hour banter we do before we actually cover our movie or watch. We'll have that for an entire live stream show once a month, every once in a while. Just kind of check in.
Funny enough, we've actually talked about that in the past, because
Absolutely.
there was a little while, and I'll talk about it here. Like, we talked about potentially trying to do like old school movie talk type thing.
Right.
Because we miss that. We like talking about discourse. It's part of why we like doing what we do here, because we spend 30 minutes usually talking about the things that are going on.
Right.
And we enjoy doing that. But doing a like monthly live stream with everyone where we just kind of talk about the news, talk about the things going on. I think that between Doctor Who, between movies, and we're going into the summer season on top of it. So there's a lot of good things to be talked about in that. Like, the summer season's looking real fun right now. It looks real good. It starts this week with Sinners, and we're just kind of rolling right into summer already. So you know what? I think that's something worth exploring.
Yeah. So I could see that being like a soft launch. Our final for now, or a moratorium, whatever it is, our next Big Blue Box could be a soft launch for something better for the channel eventually. Maybe more time with us, and we could have more guests on. Maybe like at that point, could be something more
You know how
specifically.
many times I've had people actually ask us about like trying to be on the show, and I'm like, I would love to, but I don't know. Like, it weirdly kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, because I've had the same thing. You're like, "Oh, I want to be on that show because that's the movie or series I love." I'm like, "Yeah," and it's not like I don't want to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
But for the podcast itself, the main podcast, Two Middle-Aged Geeks on Film, it's you and me on film. Like, the only time we've ever had a guest is when we had a guest, like, was the director of the movie kind of thing. That's something
Yeah.
specifically we could talk about. That's a little
Well,
different.
and it wasn't in like the confines of the talk. Like, we did an outside episode basically.
Yeah, it was really
to talk to him.
right.
Right? Like, we didn't do it
yeah.
within the episode talking about the movie.
Right.
We had
A
him
special
on.
case, right? But like if we opened up and do like a monthly live stream, that could be a time where we invite friends on or like other guests to kind of just chill with us, whatever, and talk about the news and that kind of thing. I think it could be fun to hang out with everybody at that point. But we haven't planned it out officially yet. We're actually doing a lot of this live on air as you hear, or not live on air as I
This
record
is
it.
what we do. We're really good at figuring out we're going to do these things while we're live on air talking to each other. It's this is what we call good television or
Absolutely, good
podcasting
content.
or whatever you want to call it. Like, but it's fun, and I hope that people understand where we're coming from, because it was not an easy decision, but it was funny because we had kind of talked about it, and I knew after you watched it on Saturday night, then we didn't talk at all on Sunday, which is unusual. We don't usually go a day without talking.
Right.
And then
Especially after like a Doctor Who
especially
episode.
after Doctor Who.
Right.
And then you texted me last night, and I knew from your text message that you were in the exact same spot I was, where we were both like, we just don't really want to do this.
Right. And as you'll spoiler, we had thought about first of all, we were going to do the show. We're not going to do the show. Maybe we'll just do a live stream, a general live stream where we'll just we'll kind of what I just pitched in a way,
Yeah.
but we talk about Doctor Who first, and then kind of like what we're doing now. But like, kind of it was like, I don't even feel like doing that tonight. To be honest, it was like
No.
I just
Well, and as it turns out, I felt like death anyway yesterday, so like it was fine.
right.
It worked out okay. I'm living through the world's worst. Like it's springtime, obviously, for all of us, and so unfortunately, that also means that everything out in Arizona is blooming and out to kill me. So there's certain days when I wake up and I can't breathe. I like it's hard out here, man. Like
Yeah.
it can be real difficult. And I had these people yesterday from fucking Minnesota come in and they were like, "What are you complaining about?" And I was like, "I can't fucking breathe." And they're like, "Oh, it sounds like you're a wimp. It's a real nice day out." And I was like, "I thought you people from Minnesota are supposed to be nice. Like the hell?" Also, speaking of which, not Minnesota, but the bar. I don't know if you guys know this about me. I love talking about nerd stuff, and everyone at the bar knows that that's how I am. Paul, you are shocked by this information.
Get out.
I know. Okay, I can go. Bye. So Sunday, I had a bunch of my regulars who are not like Sunday regulars come in,
Uh-huh.
and they were all like directly on the bar, and somehow someone brought up like we were basically talking about the state of fandoms, which is kind of the conversation we've been having in like the how things have been lately.
Right.
And I was like, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really fucking tired of people being so toxic all the time because I kind of just want to watch like my wibbly wobbly timey wimey shows in peace. I want to enjoy my comic book shit in peace. Like I'm so tired of culture war junkies and shit. And somehow we ended up talking about The Last Jedi.
Oh,
And I started going.
As we do when it comes to
As I do.
for fandoms.
Well, actually, funny enough, it was The Last Jedi and Dial of Destiny.
There it is. 27
There
minutes.
it is. 27 minutes in. But like, and this is not a joke, by the way. It really is like basically me being like, I'm really tired of people not taking this stuff and like warping it because they're angry because they don't understand what the thing is saying and they think it's attacking them when in actuality it's legitimately playing off of everything that the movies have done. And I'm getting hyper about it. I'm doing that thing where I'm holding court and everyone's watching. And I was like, if you watch, Return of the Jedi, Luke will not fight the Emperor. Like that's the whole point of the end of the movie is he tosses the lightsaber aside. Like he's a pacifist. He doesn't want to fight if he doesn't have to. Like that is the character that we are given at the end of The Last Jedi. Like that whole thing. And I'm just going and going and going. And one of my other regulars who is not involved in the conversation walks up and he goes, "You talking about Star Wars again?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Cool, man." And he walks off. But it was just like one of those moments where you go, I am so, even in my life, so known for being this way now that they just know the shit that gets me like hyper. And like, they just, this is who I am. They like it. And then it is what it is.
Absolutely.
And, or they walk away because they don't want to get in the middle of the storm.
Which is fine. They want to, because you're a very intimidating presence when you get going. When you get going, you're a fireball, and it's like, okay, I got to step out of the way, or I'm going to get burned.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now I'm like,
yes.
Okay. Yes, the answer is yes.
Depends on where you stand.
Yeah, if you're behind me, you're doing just fine.
Right, exactly. If you're in front, you better wear some sunscreen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've held the court before where I got pushed by people trying to do the Die Hard's Not a Christmas Movie thing, and then by the time it was over, I actually had someone go, "My whole life, I thought it was not a Christmas movie, and you literally changed my mind within 10 minutes."
Bingo.
I was like, "See,
problem solved."
I wish I had that amount of enthusiasm to talk about Superman 3 right now, but we're about to anyway because. Hey, look, we spun the wheels long enough, but in 1983, unfortunately, we were gifted air quotes, this 1983 Richard Lester Superman sequel. That is, look, it's pretty bad. And I'm just going to say it now. It's pretty bad, and it's not even the worst Superman movie that we're going to talk about.
No, it isn't.
And that's a real problem.
Yes, it is.
Richard Lester, who directed Superman 2, After
Kinda.
Donner was notoriously fired and let go, the Salkinds decided that they were going to bring him back. And the funniest part about all of this is a really bad movie. And actually, the initial Superman 3 pitch was worse
Right.
in some capacity. And we are lucky and dodged a bullet. But also, I don't know how much that says because we still ended up with,
Getting shot, pretty much.
yeah, like, it's
We dodged a
still
different bullet.
really,
Right.
yeah, we dodged one bullet to get hit with another that is pretty fucking bad. Now, here's the thing, and I know Paul is going to say this, and I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off because he's been texting me this, so I'm not stealing it and claiming this for my own. If you just watch this as a Richard Pryor family comedy, you might like it.
Yes, I did. I mentioned that specifically. It's a Richard Pryor, who's not a very family-friendly comedian, usually a stand-up comedy kind of guy who's very R-rated a lot of the times. But if you let him do a PG, family-friendly film with a comedy in mind, you watch it that way, almost like sitcom in a way, like you could get away with liking it as an 80s comedy film, and it works. However, this is not the franchise for that in any way, shape, or form.
No,
For
no,
a,
it sure isn't.
for a film that Superman in 1978 was so groundbreaking and so iconic, it took Superman seriously in a way that comic book nerds couldn't have dreamed possible. Because it was for the longest time is the brunt of jokes. It's the Batman 66 TV show, which I love, by the way, but that's about as serious as comic books were taken. Like, really. This was a way they looked at it. They showed you an epic, iconic, groundbreaking film, groundbreaking score. And it was, you would believe a man could fly. And you did.
And you did.
He did, and Superman 2 was followed up. Yeah, not as good because especially because of the Donner Lester fiasco, but it's still like held
It's
court
still
over,
watchable.
and it's mostly Donner anyway. That's probably why, because like 70% of it is still Donner pretty much at this point, so or whatever you want to call it. And this one just like undoes almost all of that goodwill and all of that work it's done becoming serious and taking itself seriously, and shifts the tone entirely. I almost feel like we should have been prepared for it because the comedy aspect that Lester attacks with is the same comedy aspect he put in Superman 2. His stuff in Superman 2 was a little similar in vibe, but there just wasn't a lot of it. And then when there wasn't a lot of it, you could kind of get away with it a little bit. You kind of like, okay, that's fine. But it's still less than Superman 1, so you're already on the downswing. This film is all the slapsticky stuff that was in Superman 2, the Lester cut, done like to the utmost degree.
Dude, it does it right up front. The
Right
entire
up
opening of this movie, when it's instead of number one, they take everything out of space and do the opening credits on the Metropolis streets over a slapstick opening credit sequence of a bumbling blind man wandering around the city, penguins that are like out and about
exploding.
and then exploding. Like, maybe they're supposed to be the toy makers. I really don't know. It's never really explained. Then a dude is caught in his car that is full of water and he's going to drown it. Like, I don't understand.
And it's like got this
Immediately.
almost like bumbling music. Like it's music is
Yes.
definitively not John Williams.
No.
Like it's such a step down. And I don't mean any offense to Ken Thorpe, but like because it honestly fits what director Lester is going for. So I can't blame Thorpe for it, but it's just so off-putting. And like it's actually first it doesn't even open there. We have the opening sequence with Richard Pryor.
Oh, no, I know, but I
The
was just
unemployment
talking
sequence.
about like what I consider the opening.
Right. I get that, but I just want to throw that in there as well. That like already sets the tone for. Wait, we're opening our Superman movie with a Richard Pryor like comedy bit, basically. And it's like this is what we're opening Superman 3 with. This is the movie. What is going on here? What am I watching? And it's like I could settle in like if I watch like let's say this came on screen. Let's say this came on screen. I didn't know what it was. It was 1984 or something like that. I didn't see it in theaters or come on. I watched this. I'm like, okay, so we're watching a Richard Pryor movie. And then it flips to Superman, the opening and the opening sequence of the famous letters, but going like the wrong way. And like, I'd be like, what is happening here? Why is this? Is this a Saturday Night Live bit? Is this like mocking? Like what? That's what
Yeah.
it felt like at that point.
It legitimately angered me, and it was so funny because I think I said this during our Superman 2 episode. It's been a long time since I've seen this.
Yeah.
I generally don't go back and watch it
Mhm.
for
I get
reasons.
why. Yeah.
And I forgot about all this. The stuff I mostly remember is the stuff that we're going to talk about that is actually like there is some decent stuff in the movie.
There's some redeemable moments in here, yes.
Yeah. But like
Not many, but they are there.
I texted you immediately and I was like, "Oh, I forgot like from jump it is bad."
You
Like
wanna
you're
know
immediately reminded, "Oh, this is a different Superman movie and not in a good way."
you wanna know what, like, bothered me? Like, something stupid and small that bothered me, but it would, like to me, it just shows how bad some of this was. Richard Pryor gets the matchbook where on the matchbook, it's the go to school for computer stuff or whatever it is. The telephone number on there is 1234567 8. And, like,
Mhm.
stupid details, like, whatever, like, you're not gonna put a real phone number out, but at least, like, use the trope, the 555, whatever, whatever, like,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 that's the little detail we're going to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, what are you doing?
Well, and you know, the Salkinds said that this was their vision of what Superman should be on film, and it's really baffling to me that this is what they see as their vision of Superman on film. Because to me, this bumbling slapstick version is the worst possible answer, especially coming off of your two previous films that did make me believe a man could fly and
Right.
gave me like a Superman who was heroic. And like there are still moments, again, like it's not all bad. It's just mostly all bad. And
And
that's the problem. Like,
is there an argument to be made? I don't know. I haven't read them in a long time, but, like, I think, like, the '40s Superman comic books had a lot of silly, stupid things like this in it. Was this
sure,
their attempt to do Golden Age like that?
maybe.
But, either way, even if it was, though, Superman and Superman 2 were hybrids of that. Like, there was stuff that was definitively Golden Age type Superman stuff, but you were doing it in a serious
Otis.
Otis, but you were doing it in a serious manner. You had to nod to the phone booth or the phone booth, like, "Oh, can't do that here." It's like nodding back, like, that's the stuff we know you grew up on, like, way back in the '40s or the original where it came from. But we're doing a serious live action Superman. We can't commit to that fully. This one commits to that silliness fully, and it's like it's such a detriment to the overall
Well,
tone.
and you know, say what you will, because obviously there's a lot of hearsay, and we were actually, weirdly enough, having this conversation about the Gene Hackman of it all with this film.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, all the time, all the behind the scenes shenanigans
Mhm.
between what happened with Donner between 1 and 2, the effects are still felt here. And
Absolutely.
so that also is part of the problem, is because you lost most of the cast along the way. Like, Margot Kidder is basically just written out of the film.
Mhm.
Hackman's not back, and you have Walmart fucking
I
Lex Luthor
not even
as the
Walmart,
villain.
like dollar store,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Vaughn,
but like, and look,
Ross Webster,
love
Charles
Robert
Webster.
Vaughn. Like,
Yes.
this is not a dig at Robert Vaughn. The Man from Uncle is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. I used to watch that all the time growing up with my parents. Like, I love Robert Vaughn.
Yes.
But like, good lord, dude.
Okay, now
It's just like you couldn't have written it more obviously that it was written to be Lex Luthor,
right. No,
only to pivot off of Luthor and not really try to change it.
we had the conversation off air. We had the conversation before, like, this is actually we should honestly, as soon as we hit StreamYard, we should just hit record because that's the podcast. But we had this
It is.
conversation
I
off
know. We
air.
always end up saying that we had like an entire conversation, but we were talking for like 30 minutes before we even hit record.
But, like, we had the we know the argument. Hackman famously did not come back for the reshoots of Superman 2. He was pissed at the Salkinds for what they did to Donner. Now, he has denied that that's what prevented him coming back from Superman 3. He did come back for Superman 4. In this case, he said he did not come back because he couldn't fit into his schedule and he didn't want to be the horror villain that keeps coming back at the end. You need to do something else. And I want to believe that if he was really pissed at Hawkins, like still, like he would just come out and say, "I had disagreement. I didn't agree with the direction, so I didn't want to come back." He said that he had no schedule, but I know you think otherwise, and I understand the suspicion fully. I
Yeah,
do think that you said it best. Obviously, they wrote him in.
right.
And I don't know if that's the case. I don't even know if they should have put happen in the beginning because, quite frankly, he's not wrong to say that. It's hard having Superman versus Luthor every single movie. Should that be the way to
Yes.
go? No, he probably shouldn't go that
No,
way. In
he
fact,
should not be.
but if you're going to do an not Luthor villain, then don't give us Dollar Store Luthor. Then
Right.
he's going
And
completely
that
opposite.
and I think that's one of the biggest problems with this movie is that it can't get out of its own way to remind you of the stuff that mostly worked better because
Mhm.
every character around Ross Webster, who Robert Vaughn plays, is a different version of the characters we've seen around Luthor on top of it.
Right.
And that's actually this kind of movie in a nutshell is weirdly a lot of things that you recognize from other things that have been done better other places
Hmm.
and not like this movie suffers because of it. Because
Hmm.
you know when you watch something and you go, "Oh, it's actually super fun," even though it's clearly modeled after a thing I like. The
Right.
Beekeeper is a perfect example of that. Is
Yeah.
it totally just a riff off of John Wick? Yes.
Yes.
Do you care? No,
No.
because it's really fucking fun.
Right.
Like, it is very, very apparent that it is just John Wick with Jason Statham.
Right. But he is a worthy. That character was a worthy John Wick replacement clone kind of
Right.
thing. It's not like you called the guy. It's not like he was. It's not like Jason Statham's dog got killed and he's got. It's like it wasn't like exactly a carbon copy ripoff. It was
No.
enough. It was a variation on a theme. This just felt like, well, can't get Luther change the name to Webster and we're good to go.
Well, I mean, look, the third act of this movie leading into the fight in the weird underground base
Valley.
thing is nothing but a ripoff of Star Wars.
Uh-huh.
They're trying so hard to do the Death Star run with Superman where they're shooting missiles at him, but it's also trying to be like War Games or something. It's fucking baffling. Now, granted, this came out before War Games, I'm pretty sure, but the point still stands is that like it's clearly just trying to riff off of shit you know.
Right.
Now, the one thing it does give us is the Borg Queen, and I am gonna say that the Star Trek actually stole the design of the Borg Queen from this movie, and it's okay because Star Trek did it better.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But I will say though, I will give this credit as well. That was actually one of my favorite parts of this film. That actually, the
The Borg Queen
design
thing.
and
Yeah.
how it happened, I was kind of like, that actually looks kind of good. Like, that
Yeah.
actually, for that, especially from 1983, I'm like, that actually works for me. Okay, well, it was a little stupid how what happened afterwards and everything else when she gets pulled back in and like gets transformed. Like that's actually kind of like scary. That's a kind of a
Yeah.
good little aspect to it. Good for you.
Yeah, look, Annie Ross as Vera is like such a forgettable character and
Yeah.
totally a waste, but that sequence is so good. And again, it's one of the few things in the movie that kind of works,
Kind of
oddly
works.
enough. But we also continue to end up in these situations where it's like someone in team bad guy now decides to be team good guy and help Superman and save him. And like you're just repeating the same shit we've already
Right.
seen. Like
Right.
you're not doing it differently. I don't care if you put Superman versus the missiles before it and just ripped off Star Wars. Like I just don't care because your movie's not good enough for this.
Right.
And
100%.
it's baffling. Like I'm watching the movie getting angrier and angrier because I can see where some of this stuff makes sense and I can see where it should work, but it's just drowning in comedy and incompetence.
Absolutely. The execution is the worst aspect of it because I told you before also, like there is a lot of things I understand what they're doing. For example, let's go back to Margot Kidder. Margot Kidder famously was also very angry about the Donner stuff. And
Yes.
as a result, although Salkin will deny it, he basically wrote Lois Lane out of the film. Lois
I'll
has
say
like,
this. To your point, I think it's so funny that every time Salkind has ever opened his mouth about any of this, it was always like, "No, that wasn't me. That
yeah,
that was said wrong. No, that wasn't me.
I
That
believe that.
that that was totally taken out of context. Nope, nope, that's not what
Deny,
happened."
deny, deny.
It's all he does, and you're just like, "Come
Really?
on, man." Anyway.
So famously, Lois, she is in the movie. I think there was a contractual thing. I think that's what we figured out. But she does have 13 lines. She's in the very beginning and the very end, and that's fine. Credit where credit's due because of that. If that was the reason why they shifted, and that's why they shifted. But having the angle where Clark is going back to Smallville and he's going to meet with Lana Lang and have that storyline, it makes sense to be a little less Lois, have a little less Lois in it.
Oh,
Let's take Lois out. However, part of that problem, either way, no matter what your intention was, you're taking away one of the better parts of Superman 1 and 2, which was the chemistry that Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder had. Their chemistry was off the charts and it worked. And it's not to say his chemistry with Annette O'Toole is bad, because it's good as well.
No, it's actually, I'll say
really
that
good.
it's really good, and it's arguably one of the better parts of the movie. I really love their relationship. I wish it was actually fleshed out more.
I 100% agree. I mean, she famously played Martha Kent later on in Smallville, so she has that big connection to the franchise now as well. But no, she was exactly what you'd want from the the homegrown prom queen. She was exactly what was promised, and it was a great foil for Christopher Reeve. What you did, though, is you totally waste her after Act 2. She basically disappears from the film after Act 2. They kind of bring her back as a tie-in at the end, and all of a sudden she's in Metropolis as a secretary, which I think is actually even worse, to be honest with you. But it's just you're putting her in the Daily Planet now with Lois, and that's going to be, and then they dropped it for Superman 4. So it's
exactly. Then she just doesn't come back. So
I don't think they mention her in Superman 4. I don't think they do it at all. She's great, but she does her part. And then she's gone. And it's well, why are you getting rid of one person, hooking him up with someone else, and then leaving her halfway through? It's execution that kills it.
It is. And it's so strange because the stuff with Lana is she's in this abusive relationship with this drunk guy, but you also don't are they really in a relationship? Because he's really he's around, but I never get the vibe that they're actually together. And so she's from the moment that you see them together at the high school reunion, they do this whole thing where she's immediately back on top. She and Clark apparently have always crushed on each other. Because remember, Lana appears in Superman the movie. It's not played obviously by Annette O'Toole in the first movie,
right?
But she looks enough like the girl who played Lana that you believe that she grew up to be her.
Yes, easily.
And so
Christopher Reeve wasn't Clark at that point, so it makes sense.
Right,
it works.
So they immediately go back to their clearly high school crushes who never really leaned in on those emotions. And now that they're back in this environment, they're going back into that. And immediately she is throwing herself at him, and but it's also she's doing it to get away from her abusive.
I wish they called him an ex.
Thing.
I wish they called him an ex. They would have cleared up everything. He's the ex, that kind of thing. We don't even know who her kid's father is. We have no idea. Is it Brad? I don't think so. But it would have made more sense.
Because she even says that he doesn't have a father.
Right. And that's exactly my point. Make it streamlined. You don't need, this is adding in complications. I shouldn't be thinking about this during this movie. Just make it the easy trope. That's Brad. He's a drunk. He's an ex. Even the father of the kid, maybe that makes more sense that Brad's involved more, because Brad keeps coming back and coming back. It's dude,
right. And that's the thing, is that they keep having him pop up, and it's weird because ultimately Superman Returns kind of leans on this same thing, but in that one, it's that Lois has a kid instead, right? And it's he doesn't have a father, but everyone thinks the father is obviously the James Marsden character, only for it, of course, to be revealed that it's Superman.
Right.
Which, in its own way, and we'll get into it, as much as I like that movie, that's one of the more problematic things in that film, because how?
Yeah.
When considering everything that happens at the end of Superman 2, how?
Yeah.
But I digress.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Hindsight. But yeah.
Yeah. So, not great. But in this movie, it's strange, and I like Ricky. The idea of her having a kid named Ricky who is kind of a fan of Superman, and it actually leads to that great moment where he's like, where is Ricky? And he hears the dog barking, and he sees all the corn husks tractors like heading towards it, and they're going to run him over. I love that moment. I think that's great because, again, it's one of those moments of Superman doing Superman things, even in like small town America, right?
Yes.
And there's a great moment where Smallville actually gives Superman the key to the city. Like, all that stuff is great because that stuff feels like Superman.
Right.
And it's been completely undermined just as quickly by Richard Pryor.
Yes. It's a tale of two movies, really. Again, you have Superman one's led by Christopher Reeve, but Christopher Reeve is the secondary character again, and he doesn't deserve that. When it was Hackman in the first film, you get it. He's new. In 2, it's the same, continuing the same story, so you kind of get it. At this point, with Hackman gone, Kidder mostly gone, Brando gone, everybody got, like, he should be the star, and yet it's basically Richard Pryor who's like in charge. I think Christopher Reeve got top billing, but like Richard Pryor was basically the focus of the film.
Well, it's strange too because they also treat this movie in some capacity that you may have never seen the others. Because there's this whole sequence where they're explaining where he came from. And they're having the bad guys are having an entire conversation about Superman and his past and all these things. And you're like, it is just an exposition dump just to get you there. And it's super odd. And once again, we're just doing this on top of a building in Metropolis that apparently Ross Webster has a small mountain to ski on at the top of a Metropolis building versus Lex living underground with a giant pool yard and stuff. Like, they're just inversing what it did. It's so strange.
It is so strange. And like, who I think that's like the skiing on top of the building just doesn't. It's the. I get the pool and the underground thing. That's actually okay. I gotta find that works. This does not for me at all, except for Richard Pryor's comedy line. The I can't ski. It's a funny line to say when he does that because it's very Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor has his Richard Pryor moments, and they are funny. They are amusing, which is why it works as a Richard Pryor comedy. But it's like, oh my God, you're having him ski off the top of the building. And
you know what? Because it's Otis giving Luthor the robe in the water.
Right. Yes.
But it's an extended version of that of what if Otis was trying to ski. Again, it's like very strange how they handle it. And to that point, there's the Richard Pryor of it all. I don't blame Richard Pryor for any of this. No. I actually think he's quite good in a movie that he should not be in, at least like this. And I don't really blame him. I blame the Salkinds for deciding to make a Richard Pryor comedy into a Superman film. Because the whole sequence in Smallville with him getting Lana's maybe boyfriend thing drunk to like do whatever thing that he has to do on the computer, which
oh God.
Okay, don't even get me. Let's talk about this.
The fact that the legacy of this film is the half cent thing.
Yeah.
It's the legacy of this film is the half cent scheme that Corbin does. It's an Office Space later on. It's actually more famous than this movie at this point. The fact that when companies do paychecks because of computers and companies do paychecks and stuff, everybody's supposed to be owed something and a half cent. But the company never takes the half cent out of your paychecks. They can't give you a half cent, but they don't take it back. So they're just out there in the world. The computer takes them. Of course, Gus Corbin makes a scheme and gets $80,000 on the first day from just collecting all those unclaimed half cents. That's the kind of computer thing we're talking about in this film. Like this whole thing, I know computers are kind of newish at the time. I know they've been around since like the 60s, but like the 1983, you're still thinking of Commodore 64 for home computers and like things like that. So the computers we're talking about are big in the room computers, but my God, they control weather satellites. They can create
they control everything. They control the little man that you see on a stoplight when it tells you to walk or not. And they then move and dance, and then they start to kill each other. And that is not a joke, by the way. One of the little dudes in the traffic light decides to go fight the other little dude in the traffic light. I'm not making this up. this really happened.
All right. This is so disastrously silly. Like, you could have a little bit of silliness in a comic book movie and a Superman movie, absolutely. But this is, like, beyond. This is, like, not even making sense. We are
Right.
supposed to be grounded, and it's the attempt to ground in super with I know he's got superpowers, he's an alien from space, I get it. I get this, it's hard, but the idea is to ground him, and
But
it
also not just that. So that sequence is also really baffling because you're right, by the way. Everything you just said is correct. Also, so the whole thing is Pryor's like, "See, I wasn't drunk. I tricked you into thinking I was drunk, only to actually be drunk and cause how much mayhem." But also, then this is all happening at Smallville at night, and yet we're cutting to shots of daytime metropolis, of people getting letters at the same moment for some reason. Like there's a joke, and I texted Paul this. There's this husband and wife that are sitting in a kitchen, and she's looking at some sort of travel like postcard things, and she goes, "Oh wow, oh wow!" And the husband opens the letter and sees he's now somehow made so much money because a drunk Richard Pryor somehow gave him extra money, and he grabs the grapefruit off of his plate and shoves it in her face, and that's the scene.
well, wasn't he did he get money? Or I kind of was trying to interpret it. I thought it was, like, his new bill. Like, this was the
Oh,
bill that
maybe.
his wife was shopping and, like, caught or rang up, like, a
Oh, maybe it
$78,000
was that.
bill,
I thought
maybe?
that I thought he got the money, honestly.
Well, if that's the case, he did it because he's rich and he can afford a divorce.
That's what I'm saying.
Either way, the joke does not hit. It's just like, what do we do?
Well, not yeah, 100%, and then you have the dude at the ATM who starts shoving money down his pants while a
right.
woman's walking by. And you're
Y
just like, "What the fuck, dude?" Because she sees him shoving his hand down his pants, and they're playing it as a joke.
And he's like, I'm getting more. And he's like making a big deal about it. It's like kind of like if you were there doing that, you would just take the money and just put it in your pocket. You had pockets in those pants.
Yes.
Like just do
This movie now we've talked about Superman 1 and 2 potentially having, like, weirdly problematic things with parents
mm,
who may or may not be abusing children.
right, right,
Little
right.
strange choices here and there. But
Yeah.
this movie doing that, having the weird drunk, maybe ex, maybe boyfriend thing, Richard Pryor talking about people being raped in jail,
Mm.
like, in a family Superman film,
Yep.
kind
Mhm.
of fucking weird, dude.
Yeah.
This movie has all sorts of stuff where you're just like, "What is happening?"
For a film that's trying to be golden age Superman and be that kind of silly comedy, you're throwing it in there like you're being incongruous with your own content, and that's the problem.
It's real fucking weird, man. It's
And
real fucking
I know
weird.
it's of its time, so that thing was considered more natural back then. Maybe but it's still kind of it's not age well for sure.
No, it hasn't aged well, and I would argue even then it probably shouldn't have been in there. And
Mm.
I guarantee you that that was a thing that Pryor was just riffing on and saying,
Oh
but
yeah.
they left it in,
Uh-huh.
which is just so strange.
Uh-huh.
And Richard Pryor, of course, is very bumbling and wonderful and like likable, but it's just not this movie.
No.
And so then you have this whole thing where he's explaining that he saw Superman go. So he goes into these weather satellites somehow that were in Smallville, by the way.
Right, right.
He has to
Control
go to the computer in Smallville. And Clark hits him with the door, and he's very, oh man, and he almost falls over, etc. But we don't see Superman save anyone. But then Pryor starts explaining to us that Superman has saved all these people.
right.
And we're seeing it cutting back and forth between Richard Pryor trying to explain it and Superman doing heroic things. And you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Why are we narrating this? Yeah, why are we narrating yeah.
Well, yeah, it's fucking weird, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's real strange. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And for a Superman film, there's not a lot of Supermaning happening.
Right. We had like it almost felt like the chemical fire that felt like we haven't had Superman on screen for half an hour. We got to put him in doing a Superman thing. Like it felt but it felt forced in. That's the worst part about it. A Superman moment shouldn't feel forced in. And yes, I know they called back at the end with that's how they established the acid that's going to destroy the computer at the end because we need new crazy acid to destroy a computer. Of course, that's how you write things. But the idea is it felt so like just shoved in there. Like we need a Superman moment. Give him a Superman moment doing this stuff. But even that, it's kind of like this weird, like, what does he do? He's like, I'm going to go save some people. I'm going to go then freeze the lake and then carry it back, which is, I guess it's kind of silly, but fun. Okay, that's Superman.
I can get on board with that. That's
yeah.
Superman-y, yeah.
Get on board with that. But it felt so shoved in that I'm kind of like, it took me out because I'm like, oh, here's our Superman moment.
Yeah. Well, then after that, we get into like, they decided they wanted Bizarro in the movie, but they don't want to do Bizarro. Right. So basically we get that they try to create kryptonite and they fuck up the kryptonite. And of course it's because Richard Pryor puts tobacco
tar.
I'm sorry. Because he jokes after, well, he's not going to smoke it or whatever. Like he makes a joke about people smoking basically.
Because he sees it. He sees it on the cigarette.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, tar, sure, why not? I have to admit that was fine. It was fun. It was silly. It was stupid.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, of course, that's the joke, though, right?
Right.
It's like, come on, man. Like, but basically, this kryptonite does not kill Superman, but it does create the evil Superman persona, the bad boy Superman,
selfish, dark, darker Superman,
the one who decides that, you know what, this dude who's been running the Olympic flame, I'm gonna blow the flame out. What the fuck?
We get the montage of bad deeds that Superman is doing instead of the montage of good deeds that Superman is doing. We got the Mona Lisa, or not the Mona Lisa, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which actually I think was actually supposed to be from Superman 2. I think that was the thing they were supposed to do with the original 3. I remember reading that. That was amusing. This was kind of amusing seeing this happen. I got a few chuckles out of that. That was kind of nice. Although I gotta say, like, the plan is all right. I go back to the plan for a minute. So you're telling me the plan was to kill Superman in front of everyone when he's getting a big award. You're going to go there and kill him with all your witnesses. That's your plan. You're going to get out of there. Wait, 100%. What? Like that? Like give it to him? Not like fake an emergency and then give it to him when he gets. We're going to make a big ceremony out. We're giving this deadly killer rock to take it out.
Yes, correct. That is a thing that happened.
And this guy it's an award. So the award, not a medal, not a thing you put over it. Like it's a rock. Here's a rock, Superman. Thanks for saving the day. None of this plan makes any sense at all. Even tangentially. To
I want to throw things.
I was like, what do we do? What is this? Who's writing this? Who's writing?
So as it turns out, the people who wrote this are David Newman and Leslie Newman, who very famously wrote a draft of Superman 1 and 2 that Donner hated so much he had thrown out. Yes. So
I can see why.
Yes, correct. So if you want to lay the blame on anyone, there you go. It is it's fucking baffling. It is. It's absolutely baffling. You're just watching it going, this is not real. Like, this is not happening. But it is. That's the thing. This was filmed and put on 35 millimeter film for all of us to see, for better or worse, mostly for worse. So that all happens. And I'll give it this, though. Chris Reeve is awesome.
Oh, he is innocent, 100%.
Yes, 100%. And I actually really like his performance as both versions of Superman. Yes. The slight subtleness of having stubble on his face to also show that he is evil is so funny to me.
It's so typical, it's so like stereotypical and so like cheesy, but like it works for what it's doing here in this film.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
No, it totally does, and Reeves sells it, and it leads to arguably the best scene in the movie, which is the scene. And again, credit where credit's due. it's all because Ricky and Lana and his relationship and him caring about that kid and hearing Ricky saying, no, but there's good in Superman, and it like reverberating into his head enough that the two personas split and we get the Superman versus Bizarro fight basically in a junkyard. And it's pretty good.
I gotta say, when I think about this movie, and I think about it positively, when I want to watch this movie, I would just watch this scene and I'm happy. Like
It's
this
the
scene
only
makes me
good
happy.
scene in the movie, really.
It's
Like
Chris
really
working on
good
Chris.
scene.
It's Chris working on Chris. It's powerful. It's metaphorical. It's everything about it works. In the end is the one time the music actually works because it's John Williams' theme, but it's Ken Thorpe writing, whatever. Like when he finally, Clark is dressed as Clark, bad Superman is dressed as Superman. They fight. And at the end, finally, Clark subdues Superman, Dark Superman, or whatever, and Superman disappears. And what's left is the full, whole, healed up, good Superman again. He takes off his shirt. The light Superman shirt is back. The not darkened version of Superman shirt is back, and the theme plays. And for the first time all movie, and it's like I don't even know, like over halfway through, almost 3/4 of the way through. That's the first time I felt like a Superman movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
And
only
it's
time I felt like
great.
a Superman movie, honestly, to be completely honest with you.
100%. And I love this idea of a personified version of the like potentially bad side of Superman using his powers and the dark version of him fighting the good version of him. I like all that. I think it actually all makes sense. I think it works really well. That stuff is like the actual gold standard of decent storytelling in this, weirdly
Yes.
enough.
Yes.
It's just the problem is that there's not a lot of that to be had throughout the rest of the movie.
No. Not at
And
all.
most of the time, the movie just feels like a slog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, and
It's so strange, dude.
it is really strange. And then we have the big final act that we already talked about a little bit. And we have the Machine basically versus Superman after he gets there. And my God, this is such like a sci-fi nightmare sequence.
Right.
Like it feels like it's taken out of like a cheesy 70s sci-fi movie.
No, dude, it so does. And look, I get the need to try to update things for a modern audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we've talked about this. It's one of the things that I actually really appreciate about the Bond franchise. And it'll sound weird, but go with me, especially the Roger Moore era. For all its flaws, the one thing I really loved about that era, and even I'd argue the Dalton era,
Hmm.
the Craig era, and the back end of the Connery era, is that they saw the stuff that was popular around them and they almost become time capsule films. It doesn't necessarily make them good, but you watch those movies and you go, oh, cool. Martial arts movies were popular. So we did a movie that was like martial arts focused. Oh, sci-fi movies were popular. So we did Moonraker. Like, again, it doesn't make it good, but I always kind of appreciate with their movies, it felt like a swing to like, embrace an era and the things happening around it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, yeah, so you see that with those, and then you get to this. And it's weird because I know the idea is that computers bad, technology bad. Like, I know that that's what they're going for because it's a new thing and video games new. But what the fuck, dude? Like, this whole sequence where they're basically playing a video game trying to kill Superman is just wonky, bonkers bullshit.
It is
In the worst way.
Aspect of it. The animated like Atari Superman they have flying around. It's like, what do we even like? Why? That doesn't even make any sense. That's not how the animation works that way. It doesn't like. I know like it's stupid of me saying that doesn't work. It's a man that can fly. I get it. He's fighting a sci-fi. I get it, but it just takes you out of the movie because it's so stupidly silly. Although I will say it's funny that the whole film at the end is about AI takeover, and we still haven't learned anything.
Nope.
Years later, here we are.
I mean,
years later.
legitimately, the funniest part about that is the new Mission Impossible movies. This last one and the new one coming out are also about an AI bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, we're still doing this, man. It's been 40 years and we're still doing this. So we've learned nothing.
We are like Gus, because at the end of this movie, even though Gus saves the Superman, Gus saves the day and turns on Webster, and Clark, for some reason, because he turned good, it explicitly just lets him get away with everything else he did. He's gonna like, because Gus did a lot of shitty stuff, and he was
No, oh,
whether
I
it
know,
was
and yeah, he just totally lets him go.
go ahead, have a good life. And you know what? He actually recommends him for a job. Like,
Yep, sure does.
and what happens at the end? He's like, he's still lying. He's still, oh, I'm gonna go. Yeah, he's still his same old guy. He's learned absolutely nothing. He's just gonna keep going being Gus Gorman. We as a people are Gus Gorman, having learned nothing 40 years
Yes,
later.
correct. Which is not a good thing.
Nope, not
Sure
good.
not. It's so bizarre, man. Like the thing is that this movie will show signs of life for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And just as fast, it falls apart again. And you go, how did we get here? And why is this the choice of thing? And also, they knew that Superman would turn good again, apparently, and have a pre-recorded video message left for him to go find them somewhere else. What? Come on, dude. And then the whole thing is then they start to just like lean in on this like Gus doesn't want to fly.
Yeah.
Men shouldn't fly. And yet he can't help but want to be around all of this. And then the whole ending is him complaining about Superman making him fly. And I don't understand.
I don't know if you're supposed to. I feel like we are just bumbling. It's just a bumbling movie all the way through.
I mean, we're the blind man at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
We, the audience, are the blind man who is bumbling around Metropolis going, I don't understand anything that's happening. Do you know why? Because none of this makes sense. None of it.
No.
It is just baffling. And like Annette O'Toole and Christopher Reeve are so good in it that it actually makes me angry.
Yeah,
because they deserve a better movie. Their relationship deserves a better movie. The stuff with the evil Superman deserves a better movie. I'm not going to say that Gus Gorman deserves a better movie. Richard Pryor deserves other movies, but this character, probably not, because Gus is not great.
You know what? Gus Gorman deserves a better movie without Superman. He deserves a Gus Gorman movie without a Superman. Like, not a comic book superhero movie.
I would have watched a Richard Pryor movie where he is a dude who did all this.
Absolutely.
But without Superman.
100%. It's not a Superman movie. I love this. I love the idea of that. Everything, because every time you involve Superman in his story is actually kind of okay.
It's fun, right? Because
the half cent thing
like something Eddie Murphy would have also made.
100%. It's the half cent thing is still a lasting legacy for a reason, because it's kind of an interesting, it's an intriguing kind of thing. And he does that, and all his stuff surrounding that is a fun time. Every time you bring Superman into that story, it falls apart.
Every time.
It falls apart. And it's a Superman film. You can't have that. It's like,
no, and that's so bizarre. And again, you just have this character who's clearly supposed to be Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
Who is, again, Robert Vaughn, great actor, great presence. Loved that guy. But dude, come on.
No. And it's
so boring.
I'll call a spade too. It's not a great performance by him either. He's kind of phoning
it in. He's sure phoning it in. You know why? Because he's getting a paycheck.
Right. It's definitively a paycheck movie for him. He's not. He has no entanglement with this franchise or this character at all. And he probably knows it. He probably goes. He probably looked at the script and was like, "Oh, so you couldn't get Hackman? All right, yeah, I'll give you my best." My daily best Hackman. Yeah, I'll get Hackman later. Okay, I know what to do. All right, where's my?
And then man, I hate to say it, but this is the poster child for why you don't make movies involving characters that are not from the comics in some capacity.
Yes.
Because you're using all these villains are just made for the movie to try to push their plot forward that they've decided on. You can amalgam characters. You can do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But at least base it in some sort of historical reality of the comics themselves.
There is very few characters that didn't originate from the comics that have been successful and long lasting. The only one, like off the top of my head, Harley Quinn obviously was the animated series,
right?
Before she's a comic book, that worked. But that's that's kind of like a lightning in the bottle at this point. Because like, can you think of many other?
No, not off the
Any
top of my
other?
head,
Right? I'm
because
like,
generally speaking, you're using characters that everyone knows.
right, and they have that grounded already in like that anchor into it already.
Right.
And
I
just like,
can't
okay,
think of many because all the Batman movies always leaned on already pre-made characters.
right.
The Marvel stuff we've talked about, like, obviously, if you've been listening to the Marvel ones, especially like our Iron Man 2 podcast, we get into the nitty-gritty of they took 2 characters from the comics to create Whiplash as one
Right.
character.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily work, but at least it was grounded in some sort of
Right.
reality.
Reality. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It just feels, yeah, it just feels off. The whole thing just feels off.
It does, and it just feels like the entire movie is misguided from jump, because it feels like the Salkinds and then, unfortunately, not to, like, keep poking at it, but Richard Lester, they're kinda left to their own devices. Donner
Mhm.
seemed to very much push back on the stuff that the Salkinds were doing and really pushed back on being so slapsticky, and, like, obviously, that's why he was fired, because he didn't get along with them, but he had the best intentions of the character in mind.
Mhm.
And when you look at this movie, and even Superman 2, the theatrical cut, you can see the problems on the surface already, and then you get to this one, and everything is bubbled up now in front and center because there's no one saying that you shouldn't be doing this.
It doesn't respect the character.
No.
That's the problem. Christopher Reeve is doing his best to try to like influence it, to try to like give you something about Superman, but like it feels like the writing is off, the characterizations are off, and like hell, even like Clark has like there's a moment like where Clark was like fishing for compliments, and it kind of felt like so like
Yeah,
no,
it's
like
weird.
why are we doing this? Like Clark had to write Christopher Reeve had to perform the script. That's what he was given, and whatever he had to give it his best. But it comes off like so not Clark, not Superman,
No.
and
No,
like
because that's not who he is.
how he like I know they were his childhood sweethearts or whatever, or like had these long, but he like goes like from adult male to like teenage boy really quickly, considering he just had his relationship with Lois. Like
Mhm.
it just feels like it's very kind of like it's not like he goes there, sees her, and goes, "Oh, it's sweet," oh, and gets to know her, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, it's like immediate, like all of a sudden I'm a puppy dog again." It's like that doesn't serve this story very well, even though you do a good job at it. Like they
Yeah.
do a good job despite it. The writing of it is not good.
No, it's not, and it's very bizarre because, we'll get into it with Man of Steel also. This is the problem that people keep having with Superman movies, though, is that there seems to be this, again, I'm not trying to take a shot at Man of Steel. That's not really the point. But when you talk about respecting the character and respecting the source material, there's a reason that people feel that way about that movie too.
Hmm.
Because it's been very frequently that this is what happens with this character.
Yeah.
People who think they know better about the character than actually just looking at the roots of the character start trying to do things to try to be different with him.
Mhm.
And sometimes you just got to take Superman as being Superman.
Absolutely, and it's actually saying from someone who does love Man of Steel. We'll have
Right.
conversation about it. I understand the criticisms of it, although I still think they're very
I mean, I'm
over.
not going to
Yeah,
pretend that I disagree with you. You know that because I also like Man of Steel more than most.
yeah,
Like
you do.
I've come a long way on
Yeah,
that movie because I did not like it when it came out. And
I
again,
remember that.
well, it's a very different conversation for a different day. But the point is that when too many people start getting involved who think that they know the character better than the character as presented, this is what we end up with.
Mhm,
And it's only going to get worse because
mhm.
Superman 4 is maybe one of the worst movies ever made, and that is not hyperbole. That
No,
is just true.
we have a thing here where we really hate talking crap about movies, and like we don't talk crap about a lot of movies. We are famously have we have famously ones that we really went off on, and we talk about it once in a while.
Annabelle,
We'll mention Annabelle, Halloween, Resurrection,
mhm,
a few others like
Halloween
that.
5 also.
25 also, yeah, we really hated, but it's not our bag. We don't love doing it. When we do franchises, we're going to be honest about the films. And Superman 4. might be the worst of them, even if it is maybe the most well-intentioned of them.
Yeah. Well, and it's real interesting too, because obviously, like, and this is for the next podcast, but like when you look at what happened and how we ended up there, it really was well intentioned.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work, man.
No.
It just doesn't. So, you know, neither here nor there.
Yeah, we'll get back to
We
it.
we got we're kind of I can tell we're both trying so hard not to continue to be really negative on this. I'm just gonna call it as it is. But the problem is there's not a lot of positive to talk about with this movie
No.
because the positives that we have for it evaporate just as fast because everything around this movie
Mhm.
is really, really rough and
Mhm.
really, really frustrating. And credit where credit's due. Once again, great performances from
Yeah.
almost everyone involved. Where do? Oh, weird aside. There's this whole subplot with Perry White sending
This
people
couple.
on a vacation that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They like win a contest and it ends up being at the place where the
Columbia.
Columbia, yeah, where for whatever reason Gus, because it's the coffee thing.
The coffee crop. They have to kill all
Yeah,
the coffee
the
crop.
coffee crop for the
So
money.
Webster can lock in on coffee all of a sudden.
So he creates this giant storm through the satellites, and it just happens to be at the place where these people from the Daily Planet were sent. Then they try to come back to
Like,
sue Perry
still
White,
because of nature, as far as they're concerned, nature. Like, I
which, yeah, and you hear with the guy go, "I'll take this all the way to the Supreme Court," and Perry White even says it was weather.
right. It just felt like so ridiculously, stupidly put in there. I don't know what that was in there except for to like bolster time. I felt like it was a time filler for no
Well,
reason. It
it's
wasn't
also
even
and
funny.
then why is that no, it's not, and why is it the end of the movie?
I don't know.
Also, okay, and also, speaking of that, the movie ends on, like, the worst note possible because we go back to the Leaning Tower thing,
Yeah.
and Superman fixes it after this dude has so not only did he fuck up this guy's life once,
Right.
the movie ends with him Superman trying to fix the mistake he made, only to fuck the guy's life up again.
Right.
So Superman
Great
ends
way to end
as
a
a villain.
comedy. Great way to end a comedy. Not a great way to end a Superman movie.
Absolutely baffling, man.
Not only that, how do we end? Like, that's one of the ends. The other end is we get. I already mentioned before that Lana is now all of a sudden out of Smallville and becoming the chief's new secretary.
Mhm.
We get this thing with her and Lois is
It's so
jealous.
awkward.
And
Yeah.
Joyce is jealous because Clark gave her the ring, and all of a sudden holding it, and that's how you're going to end the film. Like, that could have been actually if they had decided to keep the two around. Superman 4 happened, and Lois and Alana were there, and there's some kind of love triangle thing. That could have been an interesting subplot to a real Superman film if done right, especially because the chemistry of those actors works really well. But to just kind of like tag it on and not have any resolution to it whatsoever, it's
Oh
just so
god.
dumb. It's so
It's so
dumb.
bad. And here's what's worse. That's the better version of what we could have ended up with, which was Superman eventually marrying Supergirl.
That's right. Superman marrying his cousin, Supergirl. I'm guessing it wasn't going to be his cousin this time. I don't know. But
Unless they're from the South, in which case, I mean, look, every planet has a
Or the
South,
South.
right?
I was going to say that, Christopher Eccleston. I was about to say that.
Well, a lot of all planets have a north, I
Yep.
think is what it is. But we're basically riffing on Doctor Who again. But like, yeah, unless they're from the South, in which case, I guess. But like, it's fucking weird that this is the weird bullet we dodged, only to end up with something not better because it's just not handled in any sort of way that makes sense. Also, why would Lois be jealous?
She doesn't remember anything. She shouldn't remember anything, really.
Right.
That's the whole
That's my
point of the end
point.
of Superman 2. Right? I mean, I
She
guess
shouldn't.
she always kind of liked him, so she did like him, maybe. That's what they're going for, but like, it really didn't. Did not hit anyway.
No,
Because
it just
beginning
doesn't work in any
beginning of the
capacity.
film, she's going off to Bermuda, and she's like happy to leave Clark, happy to leave the planet. I'm good to go. I'm going to go on a vacation, blah blah, and we're good. And then now you're to do this whole. I mean, I get why she played it that way, because if she was told that she likes Clark and that's the idea, like I get, but like that's how you're going to end the movie, really? That's like why is Lois even back at that point? Lois should still been about should have still been in Bermuda at that point. Unless if Lana wasn't going to be there, fine. Have the Clark meets up with Lois again, and maybe Clark hears about, and Lois is like, oh, like I like the stuff where Lois is, I liked your article. I liked about the girl, like she was like kind of poking at it. That was actually good chemistry between Margot and Clark and Christopher Reeve again. But then once she shows up, it's like you're ruining every goodwill. The film didn't have much goodwill to begin with, honestly. But whatever goodwill you thought you have, you're just dicing it anyway. You're just throwing it away.
It's so weird. So to get into it real fast before we get out of here. So this is the movie we ended up with, but we almost had a film that had Brainiac, Supergirl, and Mr. Mizzlepick played by Dudley Moore. And it was potentially going to be 2 films. Thank God it didn't happen. But also, I can't imagine this being your like response film or the one you ended up with. It just feels like no one involved knew what they were doing.
Right. I will say it does blow my mind that they are including Mr. Mxyzptlk, they're including Brainiac, they're including Supergirl, all in their mind. Like they're actually taking stuff from the comic book source material, which actually is a good idea.
Right.
But like the story they're writing is a pretty shitty one. That's the problem. But like, and then they turn and go, oh no, we're just going to go with Lex Luthor Light. Like,
but also don't forget you got to toss in Gus.
And Gus, that's right, Gus. So that'll change everything. Seeing Richard Pryor on the Tonight Show changes everything. And what a weird juxtaposition for that.
This movie is a mess from top to bottom. No amount of Superman fighting Superman can save it. No amount of Annette O'Toole and Christopher Reeve can save it. No amount of anything can save this movie because it just doesn't work. It doesn't. As well-intentioned as it may have been, it does not work.
No. And I don't think necessarily the Salkinds were necessarily bad people. They were just completely misguided people. Completely misguided people. They had a lot of money that had the rights, and they just didn't know what they were doing with it. They thought they did, and they did not. And that's what ended up driving everything south.
Pretty much, man. It just a baffling film, baffling turn of events. I can't believe that this is a movie that exists. It is pretty much antithetical to everything that we got before this.
And yet it might be a goddamn masterpiece compared to what comes next.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. Before we rate this thing, I do have a couple of usually at the end of our podcast, I have like the quick hit notes that we haven't like mentioned ever, just real quick here things.
Is there anything we didn't mention at this point?
I liked the picture booth thing in the beginning.
Oh yeah, that is cute. That's a good moment.
That was a cute, good Superman moment. That's the kind of Golden Age hybrid that they could have done, what they should have stuck with. That was good. I like that. The Lana's son in the bowling thing, isn't that kind of antithetical to what Clark is supposed to do? I mean, like he's
sure is
eating for the son instead of
is
like Brad is supposed to be the dick, and the idea he's going to teach her son how to bowl. I guess it's like you shouldn't teach him in front of his friends in a way, but in actuality, that was probably the better thing to do than what Clark did in a way. It's just for the first time, and this is me being an old man, I can't believe it's the first time I'm saying this. I never noticed before during the picnic in the wheat, and when Clark looks for Ricky, right?
Mm-hmm.
You actually see sound waves.
Mm-hmm. I actually thought that was cool. I liked that.
I never saw that before. Like, I don't remember seeing that. Maybe I don't know what I was thinking or how I possibly could have missed it. But I was like, are those are actually sound waves, aren't they? Like, I actually like that idea in a way. That's kind of cool to see that happen on screen. I don't mind that. That works in a hybrid Superman tale. But yeah, I just thought that was fun. I think that I had a couple of this trip subplot we already talked about. Oh, 2 more things real quick. The line I have to quote that I'm just like, what? Vera goes, like fish it is.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, I don't even know what that means. Like, what are you talking about? Who are we talking to? Like,
it was so funny because Annette O'Toole says something also, and I can't remember, I didn't actually write it down, but she also says something kind of weird like that, and you're like, where is this coming from?
Like, I don't even think I was alive during the 80s. I don't think that was a saying. I was just saying I've never heard before, and I don't know if anybody's actually heard that saying. That does not sound like a saying. But like
Well, because it
fish, I
probably
guess.
wasn't a saying.
Right.
They just say things in these movies
Just
sometimes,
saying.
and it's very confusing. I'm wondering if I can find, but I should have written it down, but Lana says something so weird to me, and they literally only have one line of dialogue from Lana on IMDb, so we're doing
Damn it.
great.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Never mind. I'm not gonna go through that. Okay.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say before I read it. This is the last thing. I texted you this, and it's the one thing that bothered me throughout the entire film. Why the hell are Christopher Reeve's glasses cockeyed the entire movie? Like the entire movie, his glasses are basically like
Yeah.
this, and you're like that's your disguise, and that's your you're. That can't be comfortable even. Like, it's not like a bumbling comedy that way. Like, what are you doing? I know Clark's a bumbling fool, supposed to be like a klutz, but to have his glass, Twister was distracting. I'm like, that can't be comfortable. What are you doing with that? It's not only one
Mhm.
scene. It happened like in multiple scenes. I'm like, do you just not have glasses that fit? Is that what happened? Like, maybe they're trying to be
It's
cute.
so strange. I
So
I couldn't
bizarre.
unsee it while you were texting me, and I was like, "This is so odd." And I don't know if it was them trying to play up how bumbling he is,
Maybe, but it doesn't. It
but it
just
just seems unnecessary,
yeah, doesn't
you
work.
know? It
Doesn't work.
doesn't work. I
And I'm sorry, I'll give it
again,
to you. If Christopher Reeve, if that was a choice by you, that is your one time you're not innocent. If that's that's the case,
weird choice if it was though, because like, why would you do that?
you didn't do it in 1 and 2, so
Right, that's what I mean, like, why? Why do that? I don't
yeah,
understand why you
I don't
did that.
understand
Like,
it.
it
I don't
doesn't
understand
make
it.
sense really. This is,
Uh, uh,
dude, this is a bad movie.
let's
I'm
call it.
sorry. I'm
Let's
just
tap it out.
it is. It's a bad movie, and I don't like saying that.
Yeah, me either.
I
Because the kid
don't.
in me, when I was a kid, I did like this movie
Yeah,
because it was
sure, because
funny,
as
it
a
was
kid, you thought it was
cutesy.
funny.
Right, it's
Yeah.
funny, it's cutesy. It did have the anchors of the Superman fight, the Clark versus Superman fight. It did have Richard Pryor saying funny things. It had some, fun moments that way. But like, yeah, once you get into like teenage years and beyond, it's just not going to work nearly as well, and you get to see that. So let's give it its death now. Let's put the nail in the coffin here. We rated Superman. We always rate things on a scale of 1 to 11 here on PLD Projects because we always turn things up to 11. We both ranked Superman the movie a perfect 11. Superman 2, the Donner cut, not the lesser cut, I gave it 9.5. You gave it a 10. Superman 3, where are we going?
It's so hard because it's like, is this too high still? But then I keep thinking about what's coming next. And I can justify this because I like the junkyard fight. I like the Lana stuff. I'm gonna give it a 5, but it still feels too high.
I should really write down my ratings because like people are gonna believe people are gonna think I just copy you because I feel like that's the case it is. I should write down my rating and show it.
Are you doing the same thing?
I actually gave it a 5. I was
Oh
like,
my
it's actually
god, that's
probably like
amazing.
it's like I originally was like, I'm gonna give it like a fucking 3. A 3 or 4. But
That's
I was like, no,
I was thinking about a 4.
but that's what I thought. 3.5 was my first thought. I went through it. I went, no, it's first of all, it's definitely better than Superman 4. And the junkyard scene alone is worth at least a point and a half. At least a point and a half for that alone.
Yeah.
And other little things that I did like and ever so that it's still like 5.5 is a mediocre movie. It's
Oh,
less
yeah.
than a mediocre movie. But I've seen worse. It's just not
I've
one
enjoyed
movie.
worse, in
I've
fact.
enjoyed worse. That's true. I've enjoyed worse. That's true. But like those are different because they like almost feel like they were trying to be worse or they like
Right, like, look, we haven't joked about it in a while, but, like, I love the Puppet Master movies. They're
I knew it
all
was coming.
terrible
I knew
mostly.
it was coming.
But, like, I would never argue that most of them are, like, good, right?
Right. This is trying to be good.
This is trying to be good. That's the difference, and that's what the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
This one is cue the AC/DC. We're on
Uh-huh.
highway to hell.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I think we're gonna get
Exactly.
there next film. I think so.
I've never been more angry that we have to watch it, but I'll say this. because we're not doing Doctor Who and we're just going to keep moving through the Patreon stuff.
Yeah.
Thank God we've got Captain America and the Avengers right around it, because it'll bolster up how I'm feeling. Because
Yeah,
I
good
don't
point.
watch as much at home now. I've been playing a lot more games lately, so
Yeah.
I'm not watching as much. So I'm mostly doing the stuff for our podcast, and I'm sitting here going, I'm gonna hate everything while I'm watching it. I know I'm going to, but knowing it's like sandwiched between two movies that are gonna be better, we're
It's
good.
okay. We're
It's
okay.
okay.
Exactly. All right, PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me on all the social medias at PJ_Campbell, and you can find me wherever social medias and podcasts are sold and hanging out here. Also, I want to give a shout out to our boy John Mariano, who has been doing a really interesting look back at the movie trivia Schmoedown over on his blog over the last week or so. In the latest episode or latest blog that he put out,
Issue
he
post.
actually shouted us out and
Yes.
put a link to our podcast, and was talking about how through the show we've made like lifelong friendships. We have like our group of fantasy guys and stuff like that, which is super fun. But he was talking about our podcast and he linked our podcast in it, which I thought was super cool. So, you know, if you guys haven't, we'll put a link in the description to his blog so you guys can find it. But I thought that was really cool. It's been very reminiscent to kind
Yes.
of read his posts. You actually sent me the initial one because I've famously or infamously, I guess, depending on who you are in the community, I'm pretty prickly about our time in the show. I really have been. When I think it comes from the fact that we all sat with the death of the show for a lot longer than a lot of the people that were fans knew.
Yeah.
And I think I really soured on that. I soured on a lot of what had happened by the time it was over. Um, I don't want to get it too much into it. So I was really I've distanced myself a lot outside of the friends that I've made, outside of you and I. Like, I have my best friend in life because of the show, and like I couldn't ask for more. So it's been really bittersweet still, even all these years later, to think back on it. Um, and I was really taken with kind of reading back and being reminded how good it was. Even through all of it, it was nice to be reminded that people did give a shit. And that was really cool. And I've really enjoyed that look back, and it it's weirdly given me a sense of closure too
Yeah.
that I didn't necessarily think I needed. Um, because again, I've very famously just like I just wanted to move on. I was just so ready by the time everything was done. I just wanted to move on.
Yeah, it
And
was
I did.
definitely weird at that point. I know we straddled that line for a little bit there, and I think you were famously more gone than I was because I did stick around. Obviously, through Christian, I work with Christian, I
Yeah.
work with the Rejects, so it's almost like it didn't completely ever fully end for me in a
Right.
way, to a degree. But I
But
definitely
I
understand where
walked
you're coming.
away.
You did, yeah.
I was Peter Parker when he gave up the suit and he fucking walked away, but I didn't go back. Like,
Yeah,
we even did that one live stream where we basically called it like our last call, talking about the
right.
show.
Yep.
And I mean, I've pretty much stayed to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've really kept to myself on a lot of things about everything. So I just want to say I really appreciate John Mariano for what he's doing with it. Um, Again, I know that there's a lot of feelings for a lot of
Right.
people involved in the show about how things were, but it was really nice, and I just yeah.
I will definitely say that I want to shout out John as well. I was going to definitely, but I'll put the link in the description. His Substack.
Yeah.
He let me know about it beforehand. He let me know that he was going to be doing this a little bit, not to the degree of what was going on, and everything else. But I will say, if you've heard us talk about the movie Trivia Schmoedown before, that's obviously where we met and became friends and everything, like
No
PJ said.
joke, huh?
Absolutely. And if you ever heard us talk about that but don't know what that is, this is a great place to look at that. This article will tell you exactly basically what it was,
Yeah.
and what it led to and everything else. And yeah, I want to shout out Mariano doing that as well. It's a really well looked at read. He was definitely a cornerstone of the community for the longest time, and he had a great outlook on it, and he had a great like bird's eye view of what made it work and what didn't work at the end and everything else. And it's just a very interesting, engaging read, but it definitely reminded me of all the good times I had, because it definitely led to a lot of good times in my life. A lot of my friends, I have a lot of friends from that group now still. And
We both do. I mean, I feel I'm very blessed for the people that are still in my life because of it. And
100%.
I will never let that get taken away.
100%. And I'm still I still actually, like I said, I work for Christian still. I work for Real Rejects, so it still affects my life to this day. I wouldn't have those side gigs that I have.
You wouldn't be doing this.
And we wouldn't be doing this at all. My channel probably wouldn't exist either, to be honest. I wouldn't even be doing
I
podcasting if it wasn't for that idea.
No, I mean, I was podcasting a little before, obviously. Like, I've been around podcasting and blogging and all that for a long time, but like, it's just so different doing it this way. And
Right.
it came from such a, I think I remember correctly, our original title for the show was even something about like from the writer's room or something like that,
Yeah,
because
it
we
was
really were talking about doing it more as like an extension of
Schmoedown.
the
Yeah.
Schmoedown. And then we realized, because we kind of started this not long before the show ended.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what
Like
it
our
is.
back and forth, I mean, of
Yes.
like doing this.
Right.
And then when we decided we were going to do it, because the show had ended, we were like, well, we're not going to tie ourselves into the show that is now defunct,
Right.
and we'll do our own thing. But like, it was born out of the fact that we wanted to do something that was based around that.
With films, with what we were doing with writing. If you didn't know, like we were both the writers on the trivia
We were the
aspect
head
of it.
writers.
Head writers of the trivia. So we wrote the questions basically. We had a team with us, but like we were
Yeah.
definitely the ones that were spearheading a lot of we spent a lot of time together just writing questions. A lot of time.
I honestly wish we had recorded that, but like, we would meet up 2 or 3 times a week on StreamYard. Actually, we weren't using Zoom, we were using StreamYard, because we were both also putting out other things at the time, because you were still doing like the stuff with C2A and things like that, and I was still doing stuff on my channel back in the day, because this was also like during the pandemic, and then leading back into going back into live production, and we'd sit around for hours on calls, writing together, getting matches ready, fixing things, nerding out, watching shit. Like, we spent so much time together, and I think that was where this all became born out of.
Agreed.
Basically, was that like, we actually had like super fun chemistry, and I'll have to see if I can find the picture of it. There was a picture that Dan and I took at one of the live events in Los Angeles of you and I together, and we were going over everything before it started. It's a great picture of you and I, like, in the heat of all of doing this, and it's like, it really captures that moment of like us just being us, and how good we are, like how fun we are together. But it's a great picture. I'll have to see if I can find it. I haven't seen that one in a while, now that I think about it.
Yeah, me either. We should definitely take a look and see again. Maybe we'll get it for you next time we're on the podcast to show you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could just shout out John Mariano. Awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, dude. Thanks for the writing it. Thanks for shouting us out also as well. So definitely want to throw some love back your way. Find me at Poensquare on Blue Sky as well. You can find me all over the channel, all the podcasts I do on this channel, including this one every other week. We have a patreon.com/PLD Projects where you can, or YouTube membership as well, where you can see us doing the MCU rewatch. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till probably December at this rate, to be honest with you, before we actually get them going live on the main channel. But I do a podcast called Review with Lego, where we talk about V, the franchise. I do a podcast with Maddie Gunner, Star Wars podcast called Holy Smokes. Not doing one on our usual Thursday time. Maddie is in Japan for celebration. I will be doing maybe some random live streams throughout the weekend when popping news breaks or whatever. And we'll be back the following week with season 2 of Andor beginning, which I'm excited about for sure. Also, a class action this show we do monthly. And of course, I do my weekly podcast, Crown Jewels, where I talk about every song in the Queen catalog and solo catalog. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. I'm done. I'm tired. Let's get out of here. We'll see you next time here on.
Sorry we were so negative. I wish that I could say that I was surprised, but
so stay tuned until next week when we'll be more positive for Superman 4, right? No.
I
Okay.
hate
See you later.